And we are live for the latest edition of Nick Valencia Live. Hey, everybody, it's like a brand new day here. Props, first and foremost, major shout out to our executive producer. Day one. This is his first day on his new job here with Team Nick Valencia News. Eric Sandoval's the one responsible for the new look that we all have here, the bug in the upper corner, that lower third. It's a new look that we wanted to introduce you guys. We've been at this for more than 100 days. Can you believe that? June 12th was our start date. When we launched, and it's now September 28th, I think, or something like that. No, September 30th. It's now September 30th, and we're October is right around the corner, and we are fully into this. We have dug our heels in, and the longer I spend in independent journalism, the more value I really feel like that there is to this. I think a lot of you guys know before I started this 4 months ago, 3 months ago, I had no idea what Substack really was. I knew that it was a place where people were at. I knew that there was a lot of paid subscribers there. I knew it was a place for writers, but I really didn't know exactly what, how much value it could really bring. You guys all see what's happening in the media landscape. You all see just how many people are bending their knee to money. They are bending their knee to the Trump administration. Just this morning, I woke up to a text from YouTube, potentially setting a lawsuit for more than $20 million with the Trump administration for suspending Donald Trump's account during the January 6th insurrection. What we are clear about here at Nick Valencia News, and I know you're clear about too, for those of you who are watching, is that the Trump administration, especially this version of it, the Trump administration 2.0, is not playing by the rules. They're not moving in good faith, and we continue to see this. We aired some reporting this week that was a direct result of the lack of trust, the collapse in trust in the institutions in this country. I used to think things like words like abductions were too strong of a word, fascism was too strong of a word, but the Trump administration continues to give us examples of that. One of the things that has resulted and has happened is reporting that you might have saw this week on our Substack and on our social media, solo el pueblo salva al pueblo, and that means and translates into English, only the people can save the people. And myself and my producer Eric have traveled across the country over the course of the last 3 months, from my hometown of Los Angeles to Salt Lake City and West Valley City in Utah, South Florida, and we've met with activists, community defense organizations, really, that have popped up organically. These are constitutionally protected groups that have felt that they needed to form because they don't believe that the police or law enforcement is really protecting and serving them. This has become all about law and order, so to speak, but it's rules for thee and not for me. We see the Trump administration continually bucking at what has been the norm when it comes to immigration, not giving access to detainees to their immigration attorneys, not giving them access to deportation officers. These are things that are basic rights afforded under our immigration laws in the United States. Another thing that we're seeing, and really is another reason why these defensive groups are popping up, is you're seeing full-blown military in camouflage in the middle of our downtowns. Cities like Chicago that woke up before sunrise to over 100 FBI agents in full tactical gear. It looked like members of the military out there on the streets of Chicago. This is not normal. And every day that we wake up to this, it becomes more and more, it's like almost like it seems like it's supposed to make us normal and numb to it. That like seeing a military or a National Guardsman or woman on the corner is supposed to be commonplace. It is not. But this is what's happening in the Trump administration. So this is reporting that we highlighted, over the course of the last 3 months. We've really been spending a lot of time on this in the last week. And our guest today has a story that should not be normal either. And sadly, though, it is becoming commonplace. We are joined today by a guest called Tucker May. His name is Tucker May, and he's the husband of a woman who was detained during her green card interview. As Tucker told me when we talked over the weekend, they had a green card interview set up. They were suspicious. He had some suspicions, though, because it was going very quickly, and he felt like it was being fast-tracked. And then his suspicions were all made reality. We want to bring in Tucker May here. He's joining us live here from Los Angeles. I believe we have him in the waiting room of the show here. Hey Tucker, how are you, man? Thank you so much for joining us today. How you doing?
Hi, Mr. Valencia. Thank you for for having me. I'm getting by.
Yeah.
I agree with you about the importance of independent journalism, especially in the present media landscape. So I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and share my wife's story, because you're right, it's not something that should be happening, not something that should be normalized in any way. I do need to let you know she is currently still in detention. We don't have a way to call her. She does occasionally get a chance to call me. So I want to let you know, if she does happen to reach out during our conversation, I will need to hop off. So I
Yeah,
just wanted to let you know
absolutely. Oh, thanks for
that.
letting us know. We really appreciate that. And we really appreciate you joining, and I just want to start by setting the stage here is that you're a newlywed. This is a time when, like, I just told you we celebrated our 10th anniversary, my wife and I, on September 26th. I remember that newlywed phase. I remember just how special it was. And it's like your whole life is in front of you. And that's what you should be experiencing right now. Those are the kinds of emotions. And yet, what is happening in your life? What happened? Just tell our viewers.
Well, you're very right. Um, in any kind of just world, this is our newlywed phase, and especially as we were going through my wife's green card process. I'm a naturally born U.S. citizen,
Yeah.
born in Dallas, Texas, raised in the Ozarks in southern Missouri, educated near Chicago. I've lived all around the country. I was born here. I've always loved this country. My wife grew up in Brazil, honestly thinking a lot of similar things. She really admired America. She dreamed of coming here, and she came here in 2018 with the idea of temporarily checking it out and seeing if it was going to be as good a fit. As we were going through this green card process, she was so excited. We were in our, newlywed phase, and on top of that, she was taking the next step toward becoming a full U.S. citizen. Um, as we were going through this process, she really poured herself into it. You could tell her excitement. If they asked for this many photos, she produced more than that. If they asked for this many written letters from our friends, she got our friends to write more than what was necessary. She took so much time and effort to make sure we were going above and beyond of what was required.
Yeah.
And we hired an attorney even to go through with a fine-tooth comb to make sure everything was done correctly. Through this entire months-long process, we were led to believe along the way that everything was fine. Everything was going well, up to and including September 16th of this year, when we went to the federal building in downtown Los Angeles for our scheduled interview.
But it
Even
wasn't a
throughout that
scheduled interview.
process,
You
the
told me it
representative
was.
of USCIS, who was conducting the interview, looked us straight in the eyes from across his desk and told us everything looked fine. Our legal representation, who accompanied us on that day, she made a point of asking toward the tail end of that interview process, what else can be done? What can we do? We want to make sure we've done everything. This person told us everything looks great. He implied he just needed to cross some T's and dot some I's. Then he proceeded to lead us out of the interview area, where he pretended he needed to make a copy of my wife's passport, pretended a copy machine was broken, and said, Barbara, that's my wife, Barbara. He said, Barbara, please follow me down this hallway to where there's another copy machine that works, so I can just copy it and give the passport right back to you. We made the serious error in judgment of taking this individual at face value. Again, partially because of through this month-long process, we've been led to believe everything was going well. And this person had just looked us straight in the eyes and said everything is going well. My wife followed him down the hallway and never came back. They slapped her in chains and they took her away. And I went home alone that day. We had, plans to celebrate. I had to call friends and cancel and tell them Barbara was just taken by ICE out of nowhere. And it has completely turned our world upside down.
When that happened to you, Tucker, like, how long did it take for the reality of what just happened to set in? Because it was, as you described to me, an abduction, a setup. They are not moving in good faith. They're telling people, show up, come through the process, go through this the right way, and it's still not good enough.
There are several ways that I would agree with you that this was not done in good faith. The first of those is that since this has happened, every immigration expert that I've spoken with has told me that these circumstances are not ones under which someone is usually detained, especially someone who's married to a U.S. citizen. Generally
So,
speaking,
yeah.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no. One of the things that you talk about being married to a U.S. citizen. The very first comment that I got on the article, which went viral, I mean, so hundreds of thousands of people have seen your story, if not millions. The very first comment that I got was from somebody who said, "You're misleading the public. There is clearly something that is not right here, and you're missing something in your reporting." That's not accurate, though. It goes back to the way we started this show. The government is not moving in good faith. You guys did everything right, correct?
That's yes. that's what we were. Yes, we went above and beyond to try and make sure that was the case. Since she's been detained, we've really met nothing but bad faith acts from authorities, and that includes things such as right when she was first detained, an ICE representative giving us pointedly misleading instructions on where to go in order to see her right after she was detained. Me and the lawyer we were with, we had to run around like chickens with our heads cut off outside the federal building, begging passersby on the street, where do we go to see my wife? Where do we go? And it's only because we got lucky and we found someone with good knowledge of that building that we were able to find where to go, because it's hidden. The door to go to visit the people recently detained in that building is hidden. You would never be able to find it without very good instructions. We were not given those. Additionally,
so she shows up. She shows up. You show up. This broken copier. They lure her away. She's detained. And then, at what point do you realize that she has been taken into custody? Do they come back and tell you, or what happens next?
Well, there was a very, very quickly. I got a very bad feeling in my stomach. Kind of realized immediately I have just left her alone with that individual. I told myself, we've done everything right. We were just told everything was fine. Don't worry about it. Once a few minutes pass, obviously the worst starts coming to mind. Yeah. And it wasn't until about 15 minutes later that an ICE representative came out to tell us that my wife had been detained. This representative could not or would not tell us why, could not tell us what happens from here, and then proceeded to give us those misleading directions on where we could go to see her.
Jeez. And all of this, you had said this had something to do, they told you, with a 2019 missed interview. She was here on a tourist visa. She didn't show up to something in 2019, but they never, explain that, if you could speak on that part.
Sure. The reason provided for her detention is that a letter was supposedly mailed out to her back in 2019. For those keeping track, that's 6 years ago. That supposedly set up a court date that she was meant to appear at. My wife never received this notice. We have not been able to get any verification that this letter is real, that it was sent with her name on it, that it was sent to any address that she's ever lived on. We haven't been able to get this. And part of the reason for that is the obstruction techniques that have been used so far by these private detention facilities and by ICE to keep us from being able to mount an effective defense. We haven't even been able to get the relevant information to my wife's case, because at every step of the way, we've been met with unnecessary roadblocks, purposeful delays, and other forms of obstruction to keep us from showing she doesn't belong where she is right now. In the meantime, she's receiving deeply inhumane treatment. She's being shuttled around the country like a piece of luggage. And every time I talk to her, when I'm fortunate enough to get to talk to her, it becomes clear to me that there's lasting. I'm worried that there's lasting she's struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. How could there not be lasting psychological impact? She's lived a good faith life. She's contributed to this country ever since she's been here. She was working, from I understand, in the movie industry. She was there in Los Angeles. You guys were setting up a wonderful life together, and then she's ripped away from you. As a newlywed. I want to dig down on this too, Tucker, because you said it's not just them misleading you about the whole green card interview. It's what they've done to you guys after she was taken into custody. You tried to file a stay of removal from getting her, like you said, sent around the country like a piece of luggage. What happened when your attorney filed that stay?
To be honest, the circumstances my wife are the legal circumstances she's in are not unique. This is something that can be resolved with a few relatively simple filings in immigration court. This is something that we have not been able to do because any action that can be taken just requires a few simple signatures from my wife on some documents. I was not allowed to bring these to them at the detention center that she was initially at, which was here in California. Our lawyer overnighted those to the detention facility with a tracking number. We know that those were received on the next business day by the facility. Those were then held from my wife for nearly a full week and only presented to her hours before she was then surprised with the news that she is now being moved to some undisclosed facility. That happened on Friday. She called me in the middle of the night on Friday, panicked. It's told me through tears, they just told me I'm moving. Now, she did manage to finally sign those documents, but the only way to get them out was to put them in the outbox at that same facility. As I speak to you right now, those supposedly overnighted documents still have not arrived to our attorney.
What does your attorney say through all this? Because it must be incredibly frustrating for somebody, a member of the court of law who's trying to break through and do things that were normal before or that worked before and are not working under this administration.
I'm hesitant to try and speak for him. I can speak
Sure,
for myself that it's wildly, wildly frustrating. And the blatant nature of it is really a part of it that gets under your skin. The reason I feel comfortable calling this an act of obstruction is because I was able to send her personal mail that was sent out days later than that overnighted packet of important documents. It was sent out days later. It was not sent overnight the way the important documents were. And it was still received by my wife days before those documents. This to me suggests that this facility is going through mail, identifying pieces of mail that may help detainees get out of their detention system and holding on to them. Again, they only presented it to my wife once they'd already made plans to ship her out to their sister facility somewhere else in the country. This is all a purposeful tactic to extend the amount of time that she's kept in their facilities so they can continue cashing checks from the government.
You mentioned Adelanto facility to me that's in the high desert that is run by a private company, correct?
These are private. Almost all the detainees being swept up in these actions are being kept at private prisons, which is so troubling. These places are financially incentivized to delay and to keep people locked up for as long as they possibly can, which is fully in line with what our experience has been.
It's almost like they're treating them like, hotel guests is too soft of a word, but they're collecting money every day that they're in there. It's like that's the point of this all. Your story, you're right. These legal circumstances are not unique. From the stories that we've covered, from others that we've heard about in detention, from Alligator Alcatraz to Henderson, Nevada to Adelanto, these are private facilities that every day this detainee is in their custody, that's a dollar sign. I've heard facts or statistics between $27,000 and $35,000 per month for a detainee, and now you're a victim of this. It's all about the money. It must feel like that.
My wife is the victim of this. It's not great for me to go through either, but my wife is the real victim here. Someone who is gentle, loving, kind, non-criminal, non-violent, and yet being treated like none of that is true. The fact that these are private detention facilities makes this a much bigger problem. Anyone who happens to encounter stories like this and has the thought that this doesn't Maybe they might think this doesn't apply to me because I'm not married to an immigrant, or this doesn't apply to me because I'm an upstanding citizen. I would ask those people to consider something. Do we think that these private prison facilities, once we've run through our nation's supply of vulnerable immigrants, do we really expect these private prison facilities to clap their hands and go, we've made enough money, I guess it's time to pack up shop? Or do we expect that they're going to work with certain lawmakers in this country to label a new sector of society as undesirable so that they can continue filling their beds and making the money that they're making right now? In my experience with private enterprise, one of those outcomes seems much more likely than the other. The fact of the matter is, right now, this is happening to people, a lot of people like my wife. It doesn't stop there. It's not going to stop with the vulnerable immigrants. And if we don't take action to stop it now, it puts all of us at the same risk in the future.
And that's where I'm at. That's where I've come to the conclusion. I've been in this working as an independent, since June. And, I told you in our conversation and even the start of the show, I used to think these words were too bombastic, or like they were vitriolic, right? Abductions or kidnappings, or that they were, that this is a fascist regime. But they keep giving us examples and reinforcing this. I cannot believe that we're in this situation. And I worry that people don't understand the point that you just made. These private detention, this infrastructure in this country is expanding. We see it growing in places like South Florida, Indiana, Texas. I mean, they are building this infrastructure to house individuals, and it really doesn't matter whether they're undocumented or not. You're exactly right, Tucker.
Absolutely. I mean,
It's all about the money, man. I want to dig into this here because we're learning about Barbara, in custody, and I don't think that's fair to her. You were talking about just how gentle she was, how sweet she is. I want to get to know her. I want to know the woman that you fell in love with. Who is she? Who is Barbara?
Absolutely. Yes. She is a person who is so full of love. It's really astounding. And I just feel so lucky when that is aimed in my direction. And it's very obvious when you see her interact with her family, even over the phone, because they live in Brazil. It just, the love oozes out. When you see her interact with our cat, who's right over there, it's the same thing. I feel like the luckiest guy when all of that love is pointed in my direction. She has this big booming laugh. She's quick to laugh, and I'm quick to make terrible jokes, and it works out very well. She's a documentarian. She's a filmmaker. She's creative and intuitive and smart. We're both huge movie people. We probably spend more time in the movie theater than 99.9% of couples in America. It's one of our favorite things to do is go to the theater and chow down on some popcorn and turn off the rest of the world and focus on a story. And then afterwards have debates about what worked, what didn't work, why this piece of story structure felt off. She is just a kind and generous human being who deserves none of what is happening to her right now. And there are a lot of people like her that are being swept up in this. I'm one individual who is really, really desperate to get my wife back. But the sad fact is there are a lot of people in her circumstances right now.
Yeah, and your life must feel like a dramatic movie, the way it's playing out right now. I think about just how you describe just how sweet she is and soft she is, and the type of environment that she's in right now. And she's likely around, potentially, I would think, some hardened criminals, people that are actually violent offenders, because the government's saying that that's who they're going after, that this is who it's all about. Instead, they're picking up people like your wife, who make the country better, who clearly make the country a better place. Are you worried that softness is going to wear off? Are you worried that she's going to come out of this a different person?
I know how much this is affecting her, but I also know the person that she is. Her generosity, her kindness, and her softness really really masks someone who's very, very strong. That's shining through right now. And I feel confident that when, not if, when we get through this, she is still going to be the same person.
Mm.
There very well may be trauma that takes some time for us to process together, for her to process in therapy. But, you know, everything in me has to believe that she's going to come out of this the same lovely person. It's just disgusting that our country is treating someone who loves America and who has dreamed of joining us here in America this way. You know, I talk to people, we live in the Los Angeles area. I don't know anybody who loves Los Angeles in the same way that my wife does. You talk to people here, and a lot of times you'll get, I love Los Angeles, but this, but the traffic's bad, but that. I don't know anyone who loves this place wholeheartedly and unreservedly in the same way that my wife does. And we've treated her this way. It's very telling about what's going on in this country right now.
What message does she have for the public? You know, have you asked her that, or is most of your conversations with her been very quick? I mean, if she does have a message for those that are watching this, what do you think she would say, or what has she told you?
You know, we haven't discussed what kind of message she would want to pass along. Most of our interactions are about daily survival and coping just to get by. When she was moved from one facility to another, we didn't know where she was. She didn't know where she was. What she experienced was nearly 3 days of airplanes and blank-walled cells with no information about what was happening. Even in the rare instance where she did get to reach out and I got to talk to her, she didn't know for sure where she was, and she didn't know how long she would be at the place that she was. Her and the detainees she was with at that time, they underwent 12 plus hours without food or water. They had to use bathrooms that didn't have toilet paper or other appropriate supply. The food they were given was bread and sometimes cheese and a couple of times an apple. These are conditions that would make us shudder if we heard about them being applied to violent criminals. And that is not something that applies to my wife, and probably the vast majority of people that my wife is currently detained with.
Yeah, I said that
It's
maybe she's around violent criminals or violent offenders, but those that I've been talking to, the only times that they are around violent offenders or other people that have really, that Trump said he was going after. I talked to my friend Mario Guevara, who's in detention here. The only time he was around those individuals was when he was in the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary in general population. Other than that, I mean, it's a lot of people who are just separated from their families. This is a new kind of family separation 2.0 here. I covered family separation the first time, and this is just another aspect of it. It's a tangent of it.
It is a fiction. It is a lie that this is about getting dangerous people off the streets or apprehending violent criminals. That is not what this is about. This is a determined campaign to prey on vulnerable people, to put fear in the hearts of non-white individuals, and to make money for private enterprises. That's what this is about.
You get it. What can we do to help right now? I mean, I feel like as a journalist, giving you a platform, this is what I know how to do. But there's people that are watching this, people that are going to watch the replay of this. They're going to want to know how they can help people like you or help you and your family directly. What do you need right now? What can we do to help?
Well, thank you. The first thing I want to urge everyone to do, and this may be something you've heard before, but we have to contact our elected representatives. A quick Google search can help you find who it is that represents you. If you don't know off the top of your head, that's perfectly fine. Just look it up. Give them a call. Shoot them an email. Make it clear to these elected representatives that if they do not take concrete action to curb the worst authoritarian impulses being shown by this administration, and specifically the actions being taken by ICE, that person will not receive your vote or the vote of anyone in your community moving forward. The way to get things done is to make it clear to these politicians that they will lose their job if something doesn't happen. That's the first thing that I would ask of anybody
Right.
who hears about stories like my wife's and feels outrage. That's the first thing that I would ask.
Anything else? I mean, is there anything personally that I mean, I just feel so terrible for people like you in your circumstance, you know? I mean, I know part of what we can offer is this catharsis, right? Like you could speak about it, you could talk about it. I know that people that are going through their worst days, sometimes it helps to talk about it, you know, but I cannot get past your newlywed. You're in this newlywed phase. This is supposed to be so warm and fuzzy and happy, and like you're like fighting for the freedom of your wife. Instead, it makes me upset, you know? It makes me upset. And I don't even really know you, Tucker.
She spent so long the morning of our green card interview getting ready. She had bought a special new outfit. She spent extra time on her makeup because she was so excited about taking the next step toward becoming an American citizen. I was sent home with her belongings in a plastic bag without her. I had to put her shoes back in the closet. I had to put away her makeup kit because, of course, she'd left it out. She was going to be back in just a matter of hours. Instead, I came home alone. And we're still fighting this. We're still fighting this. And we're still experiencing pushback on what should just be the basic level of due process. And that's another thing to highlight here. This is an attack on the very idea of due process, which is a fundamental idea, not just of our immigration system, but of our legal system in this country overall, that people aren't guilty just because a finger is pointed. There needs to be due process. And there have been instances where my wife explained directly to ICE agents, our lawyer is taking this action and this action. And that means you're not able to move me from this jurisdiction. There was a time that I ended up directly on the phone with an ICE agent and expressed a very similar thing. And every single time these individuals have either laughed at us or said something along the lines of, I don't know what that means and I don't care. The fact of the matter is, this is a threat to the rule of law, a threat to the very idea that no one's above the law. And if we don't stop it, it's a threat to democracy itself.
Tucker May, you're the husband of a wife, a newlywed, who has been detained by ICE. Is there anything that we haven't asked you that you think is important to know? You've been so gracious with your time.
I just would want to spur people to action one more time. Please, please, please. You know, we are struggling to hold on to democracy in this country right now, and we need to exercise it while we can. Contact your representatives at the local and state level and make it clear to them by phone and by email that we, the American public, are not going to put up with this push toward authoritarianism. This is a democratic country, and it needs to remain that way. And if these people that we've elected to safeguard that do not take the actions necessary to safeguard it, we need to tell them that they'll be out of a job. Please reach out and make it clear that your vote is contingent upon action on these issues. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
God bless you, Tucker. Thank you so much for taking the time with CNN. I'm sorry. I'm still getting used to this. Thank you so much for taking the time with Nick Valencia News. We really appreciate it. God, thank you, guys. That was a funny way to end a very emotional interview. Golly, you know, I'm sitting here listening to it, and there are times where all I need is not there are times in my life, all I need is my family, you know, my wife and my kids. That's all I need. And to think about being in a situation where somebody takes my wife away from me unjustly, um, I can't help but put myself in Tucker's shoes because I know that he didn't expect to be here, you know. And that last story of her getting ready and putting on a new dress and getting the new outfit. Can you imagine? Just put yourself in Tucker's shoes, going back to the house, this empty home, and he's putting away. I mean, it's almost like mourning the loss of a loved one who's still out there and you have no idea where they're at. The first comment that I got on this story was from somebody who decided to troll me and say that I was misleading the public and that there's clearly something that I'm not, that I'm leaving out of our reporting. Because there's no way that the government could be this cruel. There's no way. That's just not where we're at right now on September 30th of 2025. That's not where we're at in this country. I could not have said it better than what Tucker said. We are pushing towards authoritarianism. This is a democracy. It is a democratic country. There are so many of you that reach out to me that say, hey, what are you doing to protect yourself? You know, I take for granted, I think, the ability to speak and to hold the powerful accountable. That's what we're supposed to do as journalists. That's what we're supposed to do as Americans. And for some reason, that is under threat. For some reason, you have people like Tucker and Barbara May who are contributing to this country, who are moving in good faith, who are good actors, who are doing everything they can to, add value to the stream of life for the people around them. And yet that's not good enough because they're breakers, they're rule breakers. This man-made construct that said this line is here, you're from over there, we're from over here, you don't belong here, we say so. She didn't even break the law. She didn't even break the law. There is no documented proof of that supposed letter that they sent her in 2019. They're not telling us the truth. They're not telling us the truth. That should bother everyone. That should bother the conservatives on here, the Republicans. That should bother the Democrats, the leftists, the people that called President Joe Biden genocide Joe. Well, this is what we're left with. This is the country they're left with. And I'm here for the truth. I'm here for the long haul. Goes without saying that this team here that we have at Nick Valencia News is here for you. Thank you guys, everybody, for joining this show, for tuning into this interview, for making room in your day for us, and for the truth that we're trying to bring to you. Thank you guys to our team, to my wife, to our communication strategist, Victoria Hopkins, our biggest fan in LA, Natalie Hernandez, and to the executive producer of this show with our new graphics. It's day one, man. I love this. Shout out to my boy, Eric Sandoval. Thank you guys, everyone, for your support and for watching this show. Continue to please share, like, subscribe, and make truth go viral. Have a great day on purpose, everybody.